This is Alexa with the Clinician's Atelier and founder of Pure Identity, and I'm super excited to have Dr. Paul Thomas with us today. I'll go ahead and let him introduce himself.
Hey everybody, Dr. Paul Thomas with Plum Health in Detroit. We have 5 clinics across Michigan now. We started in 2016, and we do full scope direct primary care practice for patients in our community. We take care of individuals, small businesses, large businesses, 12 school districts, many companies, some as large as like 75 employees outside of the school districts. Some of the school districts have 300 employees, as well as small businesses like the hairdresser with 3 employees, or, the suit maker with 2 employees. A lot of our companies have 40 employees with a restaurant nearby. And we love taking care of our patients and practicing direct primary care.
That's awesome. So I'm curious, when you first started Plum Health, my first question would be, was there a reason you didn't put DPC? Because sometimes I see people ask, well, I don't want to put DPC. I want to just put, the name of the company. I know sometimes people first think of how to position themselves. So was that kind of a strategic thing with you when you named Plum Health?
We're Plum Health PLLC is our official name, but we do business as Plum Health DPC. Our website's plumhealthdpc.com. Our Instagram handle is at Plum Health DPC. Our Twitter handle is at Plum Health DPC. The reason we do business as Plum Health DPC is it was available. We would have loved to have been plumhealth.com, but that domain name was not available. So I picked Plum Health DPC because it's unique. I could own the .com. I could also own all the social handles. There was nobody else that was Plum Health DPC. And it allowed me to gain that market territory. The YouTube channels, youtube.com/users/Plum Health DPC. The Facebook is the same. The Instagram is the same. We have this wonderful brand synchrony, and that's because Plum Health DPC was available. And, I'm talking to people, I'll sometimes say, we're Plum Health, but all of our handles, all of our web pages are Plum Health DPC.
I appreciate that. I know sometimes people ask that question, so I figured I'd ask you. When you started Plum Health, did you kind of know from the beginning you wanted to have multiple practices, or what was your initial vision when you first started?
Initially, I was focused on taking really good care of my patients and making enough money to support myself and my family. And I didn't really know how big or how much it would grow. I started by leasing a 1-room office that was like 12 feet by 16 feet in Southwest Detroit. That was an old police precinct building. I had like an interrogation room at the old police precinct. It became a school for digital technology. So it came with free Wi-Fi and access to a copier/printer. And I steadily grew to like 575 patients. And a doctor approached me and asked me if I was hiring. I hired her, and it's been a great partnership. She's now been with us for 6 years or so. That's really been tremendous. And then we hired somebody else because we had a lot of Spanish-speaking patients, and we wanted to have a Spanish-speaking doctor. So we brought that person in. And then we expanded to 3 additional clinics because a school district consortium called us and wanted us to take care of all of their employees. So 12 school districts banded together, and they asked us to take care of their employees, and we went out and operated 3 clinics in mid-Michigan. And then as we got a little bit more sophisticated, we started to realize that employer groups are really feeling the pinch from larger insurance carriers, and they want to lead their healthcare with direct primary care as a way to lower their costs. And so to be strategic, we opened a Royal Oak office, which is really centrally located in the Metro Detroit region, and able to absorb a big amount of patients that our Detroit office misses, right? So now we have 5 strategic locations in Michigan. We'll probably add some more as we have call to expand even further in Michigan in 2026 and beyond.
Well, how did you market your practice? How did you grow to the extent of being able to open 5 offices? Because it sounds like you started growing and you created this momentum in your community and in your state. Can you tell us a little more about how did you start creating these relationships?
Yeah, so the really easy way is to be really consistent on your social media channels. I say easy because it's free, and it's not easy to be consistent, but if you can post every week or twice a week or 3 times a week, or if you're really a professional, every single day, and do storytelling about what you're doing in your office every day, you will have traction in the marketplace. So for me, early on, I read a great book by Gary Vaynerchuk called Crush It. And his big mantra is document, don't create. So you're not creating content, you're documenting what you do every day, taking photos of yourself giving a vaccine, taking photos of yourself delivering a medication to somebody's house, doing a video after doing a house call, taking a photo of yourself doing a house call outside the front of their house. We all do extraordinary things that are really visually interesting. A doctor with a stethoscope and a doctor's bag out on the street making a house call is really visually interesting and gets a lot of likes, clicks, engagement, shares, comments, etc. And so if you can do that consistently day over day, week over week, you'll really build a strong personal or business brand. And at the beginning, those are the same exact thing. Your personal brand and your business brand are essentially the same. But as you grow, you kind of have to pull yourself out of the business brand. And it's less about you, the individual doctor, and more about the team that you built. As an individual doctor, that's not really the case. And then hire a professional photographer and get some photos of yourself in and around the metro area that you live in with the big landmarks and put those up on your social, once a month. You mostly want gritty, raw, normal type of content, but then occasionally you can sprinkle in like a glossy magazine cover photo or a, professional photographer photo of yourself. And then building on that base is getting customer reviews on Google, right? And then you get validity that way. And then building on that base is reaching out to the traditional media in your community and asking them to tell stories about your practice via the lens of patients in your community that love your service. And then building on top of that base is like writing opinion pieces or reaching out to the media and sharing your direct opinion about how we can make healthcare better by lowering drug prices and things like that. So you're building your personal brand and your business brand up through these modalities. I wrote an entire book on this, Startup DPC, how to start and grow your direct primary care practice, which is probably why I'm invited to talk about these things. And you continue to engage in that kind of outreach, social media, traditional media, and it snowballs on itself. And pretty soon you're an expert in primary care in your community. And when a journalist wants to tell a story, they might call you because you're the guy or you're the gal, you're the doctor that's the expert on this topic.
Oh, I like that. I want to kind of go back where you said you read that book on Crush It, kind of brought up like instead of creating, you're just kind of take pictures and film what you do every day anyways. You're already doing it instead of trying to go out of your way to create new content. I think that's actually a really great strategy. And also, I actually have your book because, even though I create brands and websites, it's nice to hear the perspective of a physician, right? Especially when I work with so many physicians, I also like to educate myself on how I can be a better resource to them too. And I actually saw your website years ago when I typed in like DPC startup when I was trying to find like key terms and you came up like at the top of Google. So I was very familiar with you from a couple years back.
Let me riff on that. Search engine optimization is also huge. Like you said, you search startup DPC or how to start a DPC practice. So that's why I picked the name Startup DPC for my book, because I know that's what people search and that's the name of my website. We have a few courses there, how to write a business plan and how to hire your first doctor, how to build it out of space, because these are the real things that doctors ask and try to figure out as they're building their direct primary care practice. But for my business, my direct primary care business, Plum Health, I also know that patients are searching keywords. So every week, in addition to the content I created on my socials, hand in hand would be a post about that, a blog post on my website. And so I get a ton of organic search traffic to plumhealthdpc.com because people are searching how to quit smoking in Detroit, how to make sure my vitamin D level is normal in Detroit, how to lose weight in Detroit. And so like I have blog posts on Plum Health DPC with those exact titles. And so when people are searching those key terms, they find us. And then if they're cool with the model, $75 a month or $85 a month or however much you charge, then they're going to come in and see us, buy a membership, and we help them check their vitamin D level or quit smoking or lose weight or whatever it is that they need to do. And that becomes a virtuous cycle as well, because if you're projection of your brand image that you're projecting meets the service that you deliver in your clinic, you have a great product market fit, right? People like what they see online. And if your service actually matches what you're selling, then you have a great business.
And another thing I want to point out there is you're solving a problem, right? The way you're writing the blog post, you're being very specific, hyper specific on a problem someone may have that they're searching, how do I lose weight? And in the city, I need someone that can help me that specializes in this. So by creating these types of pieces of content, you're solving a problem that makes them also feel like they can trust you because you're speaking about it. You're creating that authority in your community. I wanted to ask you, did you ever pay for ads or has everything been organic that you've done mostly?
The first 7 years of the practice, we didn't buy any ads. And now we do Google AdWords exclusively. It's the only thing we really pay for in terms of ads that has any bang for its buck. We did hire a PR person like 6 months ago, and we did a 3-month trial with them. But we noticed that we didn't get as many stories as we wanted for the amount that we were paying that person. So we just called it a wash. They helped us get a few stories, but most of them were based on the personal brand that I had built. So we don't really pay for ads unless you consider Google AdWords. We certainly don't pay for traditional media, TV ads, newspaper ads, glossy magazine ads. We don't do any of that because we found that it doesn't really move the needle.
And did you ever pay anyone to manage your SEO or is that something you managed yourself?
That's something I managed myself. So, and that was through blogging and creating content.
Did you read any books that helped you along the way on how to do that, or how did you kind of learn to do that yourself?
I think reading business books in general, I can't remember which one because it kind of blurs together, but I definitely read all of Gary Vaynerchuk's oeuvre, if you will. He's got Crush It and Jab, Jab, Right Hook and Ask Gary V, a number of others. And those are really good, like direct to consumer marketing type books. And they're fun reads. They're pretty light, but they have some really good nuggets in there. I don't know if he really gets into search engine optimization and how to quantify it, but it's just something that I learned. It might have been a business course that I took or reading books, but something I picked up early on that I really deployed in the first 3 to 4 years, 5 years of running the business. And then I've kind of tapered off on that as we've had more growth and success, where we've kind of had patients joining our practice because they've now heard about it from friends and family. We have that word of mouth effect, or because they're joining us because their employer group has signed up with us.
I think sometimes in some of the podcasts, other episodes, we've kind of talked about like everyone's growth is a little bit different. And also everyone's desired panel is different too. Some people may feel 200's enough. Some people may want to continue to grow and don't have necessarily a cap and they want to bring on more physicians and open more practices. I do want to ask about the media. I think that's something unique that some doctors do that I've seen, but not a lot. I know you said you'd reach out to them. Was there a certain way you would approach them? How did you know where to find them? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. So the first successful media outreach I had was there was a person who tweeted out, there's not enough plumbers in Detroit. And there was like a letter to the editor about that. And so I responded, there's not enough doctors in Detroit. And that person was Ingrid Jocks, the leader of the editorial page at the Detroit News. And so she responded and said, if you want to write an opinion piece about that, I'm happy to publish it. So I wrote it that day and sent it to her, and it was published the next day, which rocked. That was awesome, right? And then I go to like black tie events and I read the news media. Like I know all the key news people are in town. And when I run into them in a black tie event, I talk to them, ask them how they're doing, and introduce myself, tell them my story. Oh, that's a great story. You should email my show producer and we'll get you on the show. And that's how I get a lot of them as well. One in particular, Joe Biden came through Detroit at the end of his vice presidency during the Obama year. So this is at the end of 2016, right? And so he did a speech at Detroit the day before Obama and him spoke in Chicago, like the last day of their presidency and vice presidency. And it was like every news media person was at our building where I was practicing, this old police precinct. And I was holding the door for all the journalists coming in and introducing myself. And then one journalist was writing a story on the floor, like in the janitor's closet. So I invited her into my office to write her story at my desk because I wasn't doing anything because the Secret Service shut down the building because Joe Biden was there, right? So then I got her name. She wrote a story about us. One of the guys I held the door for, he was curious enough to write a story about me. I go through these entrepreneurship courses in Detroit, and I was at an alumni fundraiser, and I met another journalist with Channel 4 News, which is like the NBC affiliate. And he did a story about that fundraiser. And then he did a separate story about me and my business. Networking, putting on a great face, going to black tie events, being in the right place at the right time, engaging with journalists on Twitter, having a compelling story and being able to talk about it coherently, concisely. All of those things help to attract traditional news media.
The question I always like to ask one is always, what advice would you give to someone that is new, like about to open or struggling to grow?
Yeah, if you're struggling to grow, you have to evaluate what you're doing. If you're not open 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Friday, you're probably not doing enough to attract patients. If you don't make it super easy for patients to text, email, call you, and get them in for a same day or next day appointment, you need to reevaluate what you're doing. If you're not posting on social media every week, twice a week, 3 times a week, if you have no patience and 20 hours in your day, what are you doing? You should be posting to social media. You should be writing a blog post. You should be visiting your neighborhood business and introducing yourself and leaving your card. You should be buying lunch for the specialist office. If you're starting a DPC practice and you only have 100 patients or 50 patients, that means you have 30 or 20 hours in your week that you should be filling it with marketing activities. You should be doing outbound marketing. That's social, blogging, hiring a PR person, working with an intern at the college to manage your social media if you're not super good at it, doing everything you can to grow your practice, right? If you expect that you can hang your shingle and that business is going to come directly to you, you are mistaken because you're competing with minute clinics, CVS health hubs, the massage parlor, the CrossFit gym, the urgent care, the emergency department. You're competing with all of those ways that people can spend money on their personal health care. And you need to show them a compelling value proposition. And then your service has to meet that value proposition. Like what you advertise has to be met by your service. And I see a lot of people who struggle to retain patients that are open 9 to 3 on Monday through Thursday and 9 to noon on Friday. You're not going to win in this marketplace with that kind of service offering, period. Close the book, close your practice and do something else.
How did you get in touch with these school districts?
So basically, there are 12 school districts in Michigan. They contract with a company that does their property and casualty insurance. And they wanted to have like a direct primary care like clinic or some kind of employee health operation. They contracted with a national vendor for about 1.5 years that did a really terrible job. And then they saw us on LinkedIn posting about what we're doing in Detroit and how direct primary care is the way of the future for primary care medicine. And so they invited us to bid out the contract, and we replaced a national vendor and we beat out another national vendor that bid that contract because we're local. We can drive there. We're going to take our time and vet and get great people in the health centers to help serve their employees, their school teachers, their janitorial staff, the bus drivers, everyone that works in the school district with amazing primary care service via Plum Health. And that's how we won it. And we got it because of our presence on social media. Social media can reach a lot of people. It goes a long way. Consistently posting and telling people what you do is the greatest way to reach people.
I really enjoy all the information you shared. I think you gave a lot of good advice and ideas of how to attract more patients, right? That's the whole point of any kind of business, of how do you attract leads in general. And I think you gave a lot of great information. And I think it is true. I think sometimes in business, people try to, I hate to say it this way, but sometimes it's just the bare minimum, right? They're just like, oh, here's a little bit here or there. But really to grow a business, it's like a grind. Like you have to put in, like, wait, like you said, if you have 20, 30 hours still a week, what are you doing to grow your business in those 20, 30 hours? And I think that's well spoken, because I think sometimes people forget that it's not just like, okay, I have 5, 10 patients, 30 patients, and they're like, why am I not growing? But they're not doing anything to get out of their practice to do the work. Like just based on this interview and what you shared, you were active in your community. You were out talking to people, doing stuff. You weren't just like sitting there waiting for someone to find you. And I think ultimately that shows your success, right? Is that you were out there grinding, meeting people, speaking to people, making those connections. And over time, they paid out. Maybe not right away, but sometimes over time. And that's what sometimes I try to tell other entrepreneurs that I work with, is to like, what you put in is what you're going to get out. And that's true for really anything in life. What you sow, you're going to reap, is the reality. Thank you so much for your time, Dr. Paul Thomas. You have been so kind, and I will definitely be putting your links in if anyone wants to check out your practice or start on DPC, and they can get more information about what it is you offer.
Awesome. Thank you so much. And good luck everybody out there who's starting and growing their direct primary care practice. I know you can do it if you market it and post on social media regularly. So best of luck.
I hope you got a lot of value out of today's episode. And for those that are wondering, how do I grow and attract my ideal patient or my audience or client? Go ahead and visit our website. I do have a link to our recently launched Sales and Marketing Academy. And in there, I teach you how to market not just online, but offline. I'm also going to be launching a actual sales and marketing course separate that is just focused alone in a little more structured manner, how to grow and how to speak and sell yourself in a way that doesn't feel salesy. I know that's one thing a lot of people mention to me, is they don't know how to sell, or they don't want to feel salesy or sound pushy. And inside of the Marketing and Sales Academy, it's actually a community where you can also ask your questions, and you also have several guides, downloads, and I do one monthly masterclass a month as well that's uploaded, and you can watch it anytime. In there, like I said, when you ask your questions, that actually helps me generate more content tailored to you guys to help you. So if you want to check it out, go to thecliniciansatelier.com. You can also visit my social media. It's listed on there as well under my link. But thank you so much for joining today. Keep checking out the resources that I continue to launch every month to help you guys grow and really attract your ideal patients and clients.